Everyone says you need a rental car to visit Banff, but is that really true? In this episode, I'll walk you through when you do need a car, when you absolutely don't, and what to consider before deciding either way. Welcome to the Banff Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Celine Brewer, a local Canmore resident living the mountain life all year long. When I'm not hiking to a new viewpoint, hitting the local mountain bike trails, or skating on frozen lakes in the winter, I'm helping travelers like you plan unforgettable trips to Banff National Park. As co-founder of Banff Travel Planning and Travel Banff Canada, and a fellow traveler who spent years exploring the world with my husband and our 2 kids, I know what it takes to plan a trip that's smooth, stress-free, and full of wow moments. Today's episode is all about one of the most common questions I get. Do you need a rental car in Banff? This isn't always an easy yes or no answer. It really depends on how you like to travel, what you want to see, and where you're staying. I'd definitely say that's one of the myths of visiting Banff, that you must have a car. If you've ever asked this question in a Facebook group, you probably got flooded with answers saying, yes, you absolutely need a car. You can't visit without a car. And I get it. Banff is a huge national park, and it feels like you'd miss out if you weren't driving. But I don't totally agree with this. You absolutely can visit Banff without a car. Sure, it's easy if you want to take the car and drive yourself, but then you need to make sure that you're getting places before parking lots fill up. You still need to plan a shuttle for Moraine Lake, and in some cases, parking can be a nightmare. So that being said, there's definitely situations where having a car makes sense, and there's some situations where you can get by without having that car at all. Where you stay does actually make a big difference in this as well. The town of Banff is the hub of both public transit and tours. If you're staying in Banff, especially near downtown, you can totally get by without a car. You can walk to shops, you can walk to restaurants, and even several trailheads right from the town of Banff. Rome Transit picks up right in town, and tour companies will often collect you right from your hotel. Now, let's say you're staying in the town of Canmore, which is 20 minutes down the road. Then it becomes a little bit more difficult. While some tours still pick up in Canmore, including some of the great shuttles to Lake Louise and Moraine Lake, you'll be dealing with a lot more transfers with the public transit routes. Each time you want to catch a bus from Banff, you'll need to take the bus from Canmore first. On top of that, other areas like Harvey Heights and Dead Man's Flats aren't even serviced by public transit. So if you're staying in either of those 2 areas, you won't be able to get by without a car. Now, if you're staying in the town of Canmore, it is still entirely doable. Yes, you're going to have that extra transfer for the bus each time you want to go into Banff National Park. But Canmore is beautiful, and it is still a great base. You can still walk to restaurants and shops, and there's a ton of trails you can access right from the town of Canmore. You're just going to need to pay more attention to those bus schedules and leave extra time for transfers every time you want to head into the national park. So how do you get around Banff without a car? This is where Rome Transit comes in. You've heard me mention it before. Rome is our public bus system that operates in the town of Banff and Canmore, plus it operates between Banff and Lake Louise and between Canmore and Banff. It's really fantastic. It's clean, it's reliable, affordable, and it goes to most of the places that travelers are going to want to see. For example, if you want to get from downtown Banff to the Banff Gondola or the Hot Springs, you're going to take Route 1. Route 2 connects Tunnel Mountain for anybody camping up there to downtown, and also from downtown to the Banff Springs Hotel. If you want to enjoy the Lake Minnewanka Scenic Drive, you can get over there without worrying about parking at Lake Minnewanka by taking Route 6. Johnston Canyon, Route 9 will take you right there. Or, as an alternative, without a car, you can also get to Johnston Canyon by cycling the popular Bow Valley Parkway, especially if you're visiting in May, June, or September when it's closed to vehicles on the eastern section. You can get direct to the Lake Louise Lakeshore from the town of Banff using Route 8X. In the town of Banff, other routes like Route 4 will take you out to the Cave and Basin. Route 3 will connect Banff and the town of Canmore, which you can also get to by cycling the Legacy Trail, which is a fun alternative to taking the bus. And even within the town of Canmore, we have Route 12 now that started last year and will get you up to Grassy Lakes, Quarry Lake, and the Canmore Nordic Center. And then within the town, we have a couple of routes, 5C and 5T, that will get you around town. One other really wonderful thing about Rome in the town of Canmore is that our routes 12, 5C, and 5T are all free, which make it a great alternative to driving. So, just a tip, if you decide that you want to take Rome Route 8X to visit Lake Louise from Banff, I highly recommend getting the reservable Super Pass so you can reserve your time in advance. And in addition, this will give you access to Parks Canada Lake Connector shuttle from Lake Louise to Moraine Lake, allowing you to visit both lakes in the same day without a car. Keeping in mind that this is only for after June 1st, once the Moraine Lake Road is open. And on top of that, just so you know, the reservations for Rome Route 8X for July and August are going to open on June 2nd for this year. So if that's how you want to visit both of those iconic lakes, I suggest you be ready to book those in the next couple of weeks. It's also important to know that Rome Route 8X is the only reservable routes, so you can't book times on any of the other Rome routes. Those are all just on a first come, first served basis. So as you can see, our Rome routes really do hit a lot of different areas and allow you to visit a lot of spots right from the town of Banff. However, the other really important consideration on getting around without a car is that Rome Transit runs on seasonal schedules. So as I'm talking about this, I'm really referring to coming to visit here in the summer and the fall. In the summer and the fall, you've got frequent service, full coverage to places like Johnson Canyon, Lake Louise, and Lake Minnewanka. But as soon as we get onto the winter schedule, which usually comes into place mid-October and all the way into early spring, some of those routes don't run at all. Route 6 to Lake Minnewanka or even the Route 12 to Grassy Lakes, all of those don't run in the winter. And some of the other routes, like Route 9 to Johnston Canyon, only run on weekends. In addition to some of the routes not running, a lot of them will also run less frequently in the wintertime. If you're visiting in March or April or even up to mid-May, you really do need to double check the schedules before committing to your car-free plan. There may be some places that you just can't get to without a car unless you're booking a tour. That being said, if you are coming in the winter, Sunshine, Lake Louise, Norquay all run ski shuttles from town. So if you're planning to ski every day, you don't really need a car. And what about hiking? Banff and the area around here is so well known for the incredible hiking, and surely this becomes an issue if you don't have a car, right? I'll tell you a story. A couple years ago, I started writing a blog post about all of the hikes you could do without a car. And when I started, honestly, I expected I was going to come up with a dozen or so, and still thought it was worth it to include all of these hikes that you could do without a car. In the end, my tally was closer to 35 hikes. So yes, you have a ton of options for car-free hiking. Right from the town of Banff itself, you can easily get to Tunnel Mountain Hike, you can get to Sundance Canyon, you can hike Surprise Corner to the Hoodoos, and you can even hike Sulphur Mountain if you decide to do that hike instead of taking the gondola. Add in Rome Transit or a shuttle, and from the town of Banff, you can hike at Johnston Canyon. You have access to Lake Louise Lakeshore, which opens up that entire area of hikes, as well as all of the hikes at Moraine Lake. And then in the Lake Minnewanka area, you have an easy hike at Johnson Lake. You can hike at Lake Minnewanka itself. There's some great options there. And even if you do a little bit of walking on the road, you can get yourself over to Sea Level Cirque. So there's an entire blog post with all of the hikes that you can do without a car, and I'll link that in the show notes. And now, even with the addition of Rome Route 12 in Canmore last year, now we can even get to the beautiful Grassy Lakes without a car. So looks like I'm going to have to get my post updated soon. Now, let's be honest. There are always going to be downsides of not having a car. You're going to miss scenic drives like the Bow Valley Parkway or the Icefields Parkway. You're also going to miss places like Yoho National Park, which includes Emerald Lake and Takaka Falls. However, there is a super easy solution to both of those, and that's just to do a day tour for those 2 days. I'm happy to suggest some great ones if you're looking for options there. You can't explore Kananaskis, which is a provincial park, but completely separate than the national park, and there's just no easy access to Kananaskis without a car. But again, there are some companies that do guided hikes out there, which would open that up. Other downsides obviously are you're tied to bus schedules and you lose that flexibility. Wildlife sightings are harder. With bus schedules, catching a sunrise or a sunset is going to be a little bit harder, though you can still do this in the town of Canmore or the town of Banff. You can walk over to Vermilion Lakes. And then the other side of that is if it rains or the weather is really terrible, you're kind of stuck. You have to wait for the bus. There's no easy way to escape with your car. If you're traveling with kids, that can become a lot more complicated as well, because then you have to carry everything with you. It's not as easy to just throw everything you need for the day in the car. So all of these points are worth considering, and if that flexibility is really important to you. Now, I know that was a lot of information on getting around without a car, but I hope I've shown you that it is possible. Last year, I did a custom itinerary for a group that was camping at Tunnel Mountain Trailer Court in Banff, and they really didn't want to have to move their RVs. So I was able to create an entire itinerary with very minimal movement of their RVs. We were able to fit in some of those harder to reach places on days that they were moving campgrounds. So I've been through the entire process of planning a car-free trip for people. If you want help planning a car-free trip from start to finish, I did just release a Banff itinerary designed for travelers without a rental car. It includes day-by-day instructions, roam routes, shuttle timing, hiking suggestions, and booking links, and designed to take all of the stress out of driving. So I'll include that in the show notes as well. Now here are my final local tips about traveling here without a car. First, you need to think about where you're going to be staying if you really want to go car-free. As I mentioned, the town of Banff is the hub and makes it so much easier if you want to go without a car. Always check the Roam Transit schedules before you finalize anything, especially depending on the time of year you are visiting. So middle of May to middle of October is when the summer schedule is in effect, when all the routes run and when they run every single day. Don't feel like you have to rent a car just in case. Decide based on the plans and the places that you want to visit. Also know that even if you do rent a car, Roam Transit is still there as an option, or some of the tours or some of the shuttle options in case your driver doesn't want to drive that day, or they need a break driving that day, or maybe they just want to be able to look out the window as you go up the Icefields Parkway. You absolutely can do a combination of having a rental car and using public transit as well. If you are traveling without a car, consider booking at least one guided tour, especially if there's a specific remote area that you really want to see. This would be Yoho National Park to see Emerald Lake or Takaka Falls, maybe getting into Kootenay and seeing Marble Canyon. You'll get the added benefit of not having to drive and getting to just look out the window or having a little nap as you go. Now, I understand the cost of a rental car is definitely a big consideration for people, especially knowing that Banff is not the most budget-friendly of destinations. But it isn't just a consideration on cost. There's plenty of you who don't drive or don't want to drive when you're on holidays. So whichever group you fall into, just know you can get to almost all of the places that you want to see in Banff without a car. There are obviously going to be some trade-offs, but it is possible. All right, it's time for our listener question of the week. I'm visiting Banff this summer. What are things I should book in advance? Now that is a question that gets asked all the time. So here's what I recommend booking ahead, especially if you're traveling between mid-June to mid-September. I'm also going to make the assumption that you already have your accommodation. Summer books up super fast, so you'll want to book that months in advance, especially in Banff or Lake Louise. But if you already have your accommodation and a rental car if you're going to be driving around, the other things that you're going to want to consider booking are your Moraine Lake shuttle. Whether you're using Parks Canada or a private operator, we saw how quickly those Moraine Lake and Lake Louise shuttles booked up when Parks Canada reservations opened. So if you weren't lucky enough to get that in place, you do want to consider booking with either a private operator or, as I said, Roam Route 8X, which is going to be opening soon for the rest of the summer. Any popular tours that you don't want to miss? Things like the Via Ferrata, Lake Minnewanka Cruise, the Banff Gondola, afternoon tea at the Fairmont, horseback riding, whitewater rafting. If those are on your must-do list, I wouldn't hesitate getting those booked up in advance. In peak summer seasons, those can definitely sell out. I mentioned the Banff Gondola, and on top of that, the Sky Bistro. Those reservations for dinner up at the gondola will book up. And then on top of that, if you have any restaurants that you are planning a special dinner, it is definitely worth making a reservation ahead of time. You don't want to miss out or be searching for another place, especially if you're visiting peak season, July and August. Your trip to Banff doesn't need to be completely scheduled. Just make sure that those must-do activities are booked, and then leave the rest of your days to see what you feel like. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Banff Travel Podcast. If you found it helpful, I'd love if you hit subscribe and left a quick review. It really helps other travelers find the show. If you'd like to support the podcast, I now have a page where you can say thanks, grab one of my digital itineraries, or even book through one of my links at no extra cost to you. You'll find it at travelbanffcanada.com/support. And I appreciate every single bit of support. It helps me keep this going so you can get your reliable local travel tips. If you have a question you'd like me to answer in a future episode, head to banfftravelplanning.com/podcast and send it in. Until next time, happy trip planning, and I'll see you out on the trails.